We know it's been a tough old time. So really, all we want to do today is actually just give you as much of a real participation in this session as possible. So there's no obligation to contact us afterwards. This isn't a sales pitch. We just wanted to check in. And my role, just as a solution lead, just for a bit of background, originally I wanted to be a psychologist. I then got into consulting, so I worked for Accenture and then a breakaway consultancy called Baringa Partners. And I joined LHH 2 years ago, and my passion is people and teams, and in particular, the subject of resilience is close to my heart. So that's me. I'll be leading us through today, but I'll be ably assisted by Alessandra and Kirsten. So Alessandra, do you want to introduce yourself next, and then Kirsten will round off with you, and then we'll get rolling.
Hi there, I'm Alessandra. I'm here as tech support. So if you have any questions, you can just send me a little private message and I can give you a hand.
Brilliant. I'm Kirsten Cole. I am the mid-market sales director here at LHH. So I've been here nearly 5 years, and I worked with all sorts of organizations, from enormous enterprise, thousands of people globally, but equally to smaller startups and everything in between. So done all sorts of interesting things in the past. I've been a recruitment consultant, I've been a marketing manager, I've worked in advertising. So I would say a real wealth of experience, but yeah, just always, the thing I suppose I'm most passionate about is people. So everything I've done has always been about connecting, whether or not that's ideas with people, people to people, or in this job at the moment, actually just talking to companies about how they can help their own people. So resilience, again, over, oh gosh, more years than I care to think about, actually, really, really important, really important.
Thanks, Kirsten. And what Kirsten hasn't mentioned is Kirsten's got family she looks after, works really hard all week. She's got a dog in the background at the back. I've got a couple of kids next door, and I would say, we've had a busy run of it all. So we'll be sort of chit-chatting a bit between us. You'll all be defaulted on mute, as much as we'd love to hear all 128 of you chatting. But please do pop comments in the chat function. Thanks to those who said hello. We're also going to use Mentimeter today. There isn't much housekeeping to do, but the one thing I do want everyone to know is anything you put on that chat, anything that goes into the Mentimeter, this is very much meant to be as close to an informal chat in someone's living room as we can get. So that's the only real ground rule that we wanted to cover. The other one being, please do be present. And I know it's so tempting to the email notifications pop up. If you've got something urgent to deal with, please do. But you'll get more out if you are able to stay with us and stay locked in today. That'd be great. Right. Now, what is one of these without some PowerPoint slides? So I have some, of course, so I'll get those going and we'll get rolling. So hopefully everyone can see on screen those, and Kirsten, hopefully you can be more.
Yeah, all good.
Excellent, thank you. And we've done our intros, and this takes a second to sort of get rolling. There we go. So we've introduced ourselves. Very nice to meet everybody. What are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about resilience. What is this thing called resilience? What LHH's view of resilience is. We're going to do a bit of an MOT today. So I think if I said to most people, what should you be doing? We'd all be, oh, well, I should be looking after myself, exercising. We could all list off things very quickly. So you see this is 90 minutes for you to check in yourself against LHH's model of resilience, just to highlight areas where you might want to invest some time and energy. We're going to talk about some practical tools. So I know Kirsten and I had a bit of a dry run beforehand. We've both got our things that work for us. And then depending on time, we'll see how this flows. We also want to talk about your teams. We know that many of you work with teams, you look after teams. So we also want to talk a little bit about resilient teams. So that's what we're going to cover through today. And in order to help us do that, because we've got a large number of people on the phone today, what I'd like everybody to do is, if you can get your smartphone, we're going to turn our smartphones into voting devices, and we're going to put some of the power in your hands. So if you can, on your smartphone, and I'll do it here as well, if you can go to www.menti.com, It's then going to ask you to share a code. Now there's a code at the top of the screen. Can you all see the code at the top of the screen? Hopefully you can. And I'm going to read it out if anybody can't hear. That's brilliant. Thanks to those saying hello. So 45303518. Submit. And then just type a quick hello or whatever word you want to submit. I think the profanity filter is off. It's coming in.
It'd be awkward if not there, Tim.
And I'll just give everybody a minute to log on and say hello. We've got another person from Germany.
Oh, I love this.
Excellent. Yeah, I love Mentimeter. It is really super fun.
Someone's managed to get a waving hand in there. That was very clever.
Yeah, I didn't know they'd added emojis. That is excellent.
I tried to add an exclamation mark and was told definitely not. So well done.
Brilliant. All right. Well, while everyone's just, we'll just give another minute or so. And don't worry, that code is going to stay at the top of the screen anytime we've got voting. If you can leave your phones on that browser window, you'll also see the slides appear on your phone as well. So if you wanted, as long as your connection's good on 4G, if you wanted to take a walk, you can just have those in front of you if that's helpful to you. Please don't feel wedded to your laptop. Right.
The code again is 4530. Oh, yep. Tim, can you just slip back?
Yeah, of course.
At 3518. So the code 45303518. I'll pop that in the chat as well.
Thank you, Kirsten. Right. So we all know that a little bit of stress, a little bit of, you get told there's going to be a bit of a challenge. We all know that that is actually, in some ways, gives you a bit of a bump and a bit of energy. And it, if you do the same thing all the time, you can start to feel a bit rusty. So we know a little bit of stress placed on us actually in the workplace can be a good thing, but everyone knows this curve. Actually, it can start to slip into, I'm feeling a bit uncomfortable now, or I'm losing my way, or I've dropped a few balls, and eventually it can push us into a state of burnout. So I just want to check in with everybody. If you think back to when the pandemic started, in the round, where have you been on this curve? So if you put a little dot, and I'll do the same on where you found it, I just really value hearing from everybody about where they've been. So if you can just type a little dot on there, let's move it on. There we go. If you type a little dot on there, move that blue dot, and then press the submit button at the bottom of your screen, you should see a little dot start to appear on the screen. Okay, so we've got a few people where it started to be detracting. A few people have really struggled and it's burnt out, and I'm so sorry to for those of you who are down in that quadrant. It's a tough place to be. And a few people who've seen, okay, there's a bit of a challenge there, but actually you've risen up to it. Kirsten, yeah, I don't want to. Well, I'm going to put you on the spot because that's why you're here.
That's why I'm here.
Since it started, where have you kind of found yourself mostly?
Probably between challenge and discomfort. It all depends on not necessarily the job. Interestingly, probably more outside things. So I've had the joy. I say joy homeschooling. Homeschooling, a husband on furlough, which has kind of helped. One helped the other, but just trying to. It's been really interesting because people said, "Oh, how have you managed, Kirsten, as a working mum during the pandemic?" And I said, "Well, actually, once the office door is shut, I'm quite cocooned in here. So in many ways, it's just dealing with this. Yeah. But when I leave here, it's a bit more chaotic, frankly, out there. So this is quite a safe space. Yeah. In here, but challenge, discomfort. Yeah, probably sitting in there somewhere.
So you're kind of in there, yeah. And obviously, congratulations on hitting director and everything. I know that was you drive so hard at work, and I can imagine that's brought its own little injection of energy, but also some challenge. So really, that kind of, I guess, tallies with how it is when I work with you on a day-to-day. And you raise a really good point, which is actually resilience is a 24-hour gig. And just because especially in these hybrid times, you finish work and you're out, and suddenly you've got to flip your personality. You've got to suddenly flip into being a parent, into being a partner, and it is challenging. So it's great. Thanks everybody who've taken part, and we seem like we have a real spread here today. And hopefully on the chat and through Mentimeter we can share some of our experience. Now, here's somebody resilient. Everybody thinks Rocky, classic film. For those who haven't seen it, so when I first made this slide deck with Rocky on it, I thought everyone would get it, but such is my age, I now haven't realised not everyone's seen it. So for those of you who don't know, Rocky is a film about a boxer, and he's not quite made it, and he's moving towards, the last bit of his career, and he's down on himself, and he suddenly gets a chance to have a shot at the world title. And you see Sylvester Stallone, who actually got an Oscar for what he did with Rocky, because he directed it as well. You see him, and he's getting up at 5 in the morning, and he's eating raw eggs, and he's running in the freezing cold, and he's in the fridge freezer, and he's punching meat to punch his technique, and he's just being really, really Sylvester Stallone about it all. And this famous quote came out. It's not about how hard you can hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. It's how much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. And there's this image, he's so tough, and he's so... And actually, one thing I want everyone to take away today is resilience is not toughness. And it's easy, especially if you're someone tough, to think I'm going to fall back on this toughness I've got. And everyone's got a certain amount of God-given toughness, but it runs out for everybody. And so I just want everybody to be aware of this. Toughness is something that all of us have in different measures, but actually resilience is something that we can grow. It's something we can cultivate. It's actually that buffer in between day-to-day life, your heart and soul, and the toughness. There's this barrier in between resilience, and you can build it up, or you can ignore it and have it shrink down. And that's what we're going to do our MOT check-in on today. So if you look at the original movie poster for Rocky, actually in the film, he meets a new trainer. He meets his wife called Adrian, and the original poster was so much, the original film, the thought of the film was so much more meant to be about that growth and surrounding himself with great resources and great people, and how they help him develop skill and all these things that mean that he takes fewer and fewer hits. So just remember that in your mind, is actually, don't think tough Rocky Balboa, think about all the support network around you. I will now get off my soapbox and we'll get into the LHH model. So here's a definition: the ability to remain flexible and take initiative in the midst of ambiguity and change. So there are countless definitions of resilience, but just remember not toughness, and that ability to actually move and adjust rather than just taking it. So we're going to get into the model. Now, I know, Kirsten, I sort of, gave you, you've seen the slides and everything, but I just wondering, just while people on the Mentee, if I ask people on the Mentee, what might be a factor in resilience? So if we ask, what do resilient people do? What types of things might we put on screen? So if we can all type some of those in, and I'll give you a minute, Kirsten, but then I'd like your sort of view on things that might have sprung to your mind before you saw the slides, and I'll put something in here as well. I'll put in my own answer. The good news with a big group is that we don't. Quite a few. So learning through experience, coping, self-confidence. It should start to solve problem solving. Brilliant. Got some great answers here. Glass half full. So which one have you typed in, or what have you typed in, Kirsten?
I've put in team, actually, because, and it's probably links on quite nicely from Rocky, and which, by the way, I don't think I've seen it in its entirety. So thank you for my evening's entertainment there, Tim. I should go and find it. I think resilience is a bit like a muscle or a well, and you can fill it up and it can be depleted, but it's more about what you choose to fill it up with. So outside of my office door, it's very definitely walking the dog and chatting to the kids, chatting to the husband about something that is just not work related. And we don't work in similar fields at all. So that actually is quite lovely. Reading a good book, but then within work, actually sharing experience, because I've been working a while now. My team have not. So I have several decades of experience, which I can share with them to help them realize that whatever they're going through might be new to them, but it might not be a new experience.
Yeah, Brilliant. That's really helpful, Kirsten. I think knowing you're working with you, you are somebody who does, you do get through it and get to the point and work through an agenda. You know, it's great that you always make time to ask how people are and check in. And
yeah, always.
you know, I remember when I joined, you were great at kind of, you know, doing more than just the functional bits of the role. It is so important. And thanks so much for all the brilliant answers here. You know, ability to rationalize. I love that one. Trying to not deal with things in the emotional all the time. Taking time to breathe, reflect, and we've got some absolutely brilliant answers here. So let's get into the LHH model. And thanks to everybody.
Vulnerable. That's sorry. I was just these are brilliant. Being vulnerable. I've got a prop here. So if anyone hasn't seen this before, this is a really lovely book. It's called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse by an author called Charlie Maxey. I might mispronounce it. But it's a very beautiful book. So if you're into illustration, it's stunning. And there's lots of, you know, just one page. And one page with almost a life lesson on each page. And I read it through every so often. And there's always a new learning in it, I find. So I often reach for that and just see what I can learn.
Thanks, Kirsten. Hopefully you'll break out some quotes from it. I don't want to put pressure on you, but you know, later on, it'd be great to kind of revisit that, because I love that book too. Fab. So LHH, as most of you know, primarily the roots of the company are in career transition, people who are ending their roles, and that is one of the most stressful things anyone can go through. And as a result of LHH's involvement in that, and also in the talent space, we've a great perspective on people in a stressful environment. And that's really the origin of what's gone into this model. Now, Kirsten and I made a slight tweak on this, and I'll explain that in a minute. But essentially, the 5 key things that more resilient people do, or more resilient people's attributes, are the following. And I'll go through this in brief, and I'll only be brief about it because we're going to go through in a bit more depth, and that'll be the guts of the majority of today. By the way, fun fact, I had COVID last week, so this is the lingering remaining cough. So the key things are, and I'll go through this quickly and then we'll go through more slowly, mindset. So I like to actually say mindset making. What are you going to do to get yourself into a positive frame of mind? Action orientation. So rather than just having to take it and be tough, actually, can you make a decision earlier? Can you make a call earlier? Can you say, before you get overwhelmed, actually, I'm really, really busy? Can you take that action to mean you don't have to fall back on that toughness? Ability and ability building. So actually, do I have the core knowledge available to me to help me cope with problems? Actually, do I have that core practiced competency? And am I a good natural problem solver? Do I have a good problem solving technique? So even if I don't know the facts and know the answer, I have a process to get there. Resourcefulness, so am I using those around me? Am I providing support to others? And am I actually using the support people give me? And curiosity, so am I actually exploring to see what other things might be around to help me? And the last one, which we've added, but we felt it was so important, is well-being. We'll go into that down the track. But essentially, we've grouped that into, you know, are we looking after our bodies and exercising? Are we feeding our bodies with the right things? And then I've grouped it, group term recovery. So that would be things like, am I sleeping enough? Am I, after I finish my workout, sitting down slumped in a chair, or am I actually trying to look after myself all the time in between exercise? So those are the core 5 things. And before we get into them, I'll just invite everybody, let's get Menti out again. And I just want to check in, just based on that initial quick discussion, you know, which of these resonates the most? So if, for example, if I say, well, I'm actually awful at looking after myself physically, but actually I'm very, you know, conscious of putting myself in a positive frame of mind. What I would do is I would say strongly agree for mindset, and I would say strongly disagree for well-being. So just use those sliders, and we'll just get a picture of where people are on the phone, on the video today.
Okay. I always love these, actually.
I love them. I love the graphics. I think it's so.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, they are very nice. Right, let's do
it's pretty close though.
Yeah. I guess it's aggregating across the size of the group. And it'd be interesting when we get to zoom in on some of these. Okay, so I've submitted mine. Now I've shot from the hip. And shooting from the hip, my worst one, and we'll do a slower walkthrough of it, is around ability building. busy, trying to get on with things, actually blocking that time to say, well, have I read the latest research out there? Have I actually checked back on a colleague of mine shared a PowerPoint they thought might be useful? Have I actually clicked it and opened it? So that's my lowest one. Kirsten, shooting from the hip, where did you sort of come out highest or lowest?
Mindset, everything. The phrase my team probably hate me saying, and they hate hearing probably, is about being a radiator, not a drain. So when you're coming into meetings, and everyone has a different situation. We know, because we're seeing clients, some people are working from their kitchen table, kids are running around them. Some people are in an office. We've got some people, especially my team, who, for example, have never actually worked in an office. They're working from home, often in some quite odd corners of their home. But the one thing I say to them is, when you are talking to clients, when you're, talking to anyone, bring the energy, it's really cheesy, but almost like be the difference. But if you can leave someone with a new thought or a new, they just get something different from the conversation they've had from you, I think that's really, really important. Plus, one further thing, many, many years ago, I watched a video about the Seattle fish market, which I don't know if any of you have ever seen out there, or 154 people of you. Essentially, it's these group of guys who go to work every day and they sell fish, but they do it. It's amazing. Thanks, Paola. But essentially, they make fun of they work somewhere that's outdoors. It's cold. They're handling wet, slimy fish every day, but they do it. They have fun with their customers. They interact. They bring the joy. They're throwing fish 5 feet, 6 feet, and guys are catching it in bits of paper. So I think if they can make their job fun, then that's definitely something I can do in mine. So that thought, again, that was something I learned quite early on in my career. I love that. I do bring it to different teams as well.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kirsten. I remember actually before I had my first son, my dad, I was like, Dad, seriously, do you have any advice? And he said, enthusiasm goes a long way. And that has always stuck with me. You think, it's 3 a.m. and it's tempting to just be on your phone or disengage with the kids, and just that thing of just, bringing that positivity, really helpful. So we've shot from the hip. Hopefully you have as well. Hopefully that's been interesting. And what we'll do now is we're just going to walk through together a bit more slowly. We'll explore these different factors and share a few tips. And we'll go factor by factor, and we'll just walk our way around. So the first one thing I should say is there is a self-assessment that comes with this session. Now, we don't have time for everybody to do it now, and we didn't know how many people were actually going to turn up onto the call today. So we didn't send it to all the accepts, but if you would like a copy of that self-assessment, please do drop either Kirsten or me a note. So it's just our first name, our surname, and then at lhh.com. If you'd like that self-assessment, I would say, it's really useful just in a bit more time, a bit more slowly, to just walk through it all. So please do reach out if you would like that. But don't worry, we're going to do the full assessment now all together. So the first one is mindset, and this is broken up into 3 separate little subsections. So the first one is you take a positive outlook and you expect good outcomes. So actually, what's your default? Now, there's the parasympathetic system, and it doesn't really know much difference between anxiety and excitement. So just even a little thing of telling yourself you're excited rather than stressed, just that positive self-talk can really, really help. So optimism, do you expect good outcomes? Attitude, so coming at things with that openness, that sense of humor. And then one that a lot of people miss is awareness. So you might say, well, I'm an optimistic person. I've got a good attitude. But actually, those around you might be watching you saying, well, you're saying all this, but actually, I don't think you're picking up on how stressed you are. And sometimes you need a friend to call you out and say, you okay, you're doing all right. So that third one is really, really, really important.
Actually, Tim, just to add in there, is that given that some teams were not, once upon a time we used to be in an office and you'd pick up on body language, what was unsaid, those little gaps. It's that emotional IQ that actually it's really difficult to get that from. You can kind of see it on a video call, if you use video calls, even speaking to someone on the phone where you're removed from that, it's really difficult to see someone's behavior and how they are. So my manager always starts with, so how are you? And then we get the yes, I'm fine, thank you very much. And then he says, so how are you? And it's always that second asking where actually there's a bit more, this is how I'm feeling, comes out, which is helpful on the whole.
Yeah, absolutely, Kirsten. It's such a good point. It is a lot harder to check in with others, check in with ourselves. And you mentioned about, I think in our warm-up call about, that time to decompress. I'm thinking about in the awareness safe, you get back on the train and you'd reflect and you go, oh, that's a stressful day or whatever. And then you'd be able to kind of flip into being that other alternative person, a mom or a dad or a partner or whatever it is. And actually you don't have that time to be as self-aware. I do a great example of this. I always love this story, so I do share it. I know we've got to chew through quite a lot today. But one great example of mindset at work, when Apollo 13 happened, when the initial explosion had happened, there's a brilliant guy who you should definitely check out, a guy called Gene Kranz. And he was the mission controller when the explosion happened. And bear in mind, this is I think it's 1970 or something. I think we landed on the moon in 69. I think it's happened in 70 or 71. And obviously there weren't such good live feeds of data coming down from the ship. Everything was, slide rulers and long calculations. And there's some brilliant audio where every minute, every 2 minutes, a new engineer goes up to Gene Kranz and goes, oh, Mr. Kranz, I'm very sorry, but the oxygen tank is going down. Oh, Mr. Kranz, I'm very sorry, this is happening, this is going wrong. And it's just constantly things that are going wrong. And Gene Kranz says, right, everybody stop. Don't keep coming to me with the things that are broken. I want a list of everything that you know is still working in the next half hour. And from that, we can plan. Because he had that flip of, he wasn't as interested in what he didn't have to work with anymore. He wanted to know what he had to work with. They were able to plan more quickly. And there was this real window of opportunity where they had to make a plan because the craft was drifting out away from the Earth. And they had to come up with a plan in time for them to get them around the moon. And just that simple application of mindset saved 3 people's lives. Incredible story. So that, I love things like that. And I would say, they're all out there. It's just having the time to reflect on those. Right.
And also, I think for those of us I don't know who's people who are out there, if you've ever worked with a coach where you can go and say, there's this situation, I'm thinking this, or, it's a trusted advisor you might have at work, or actually it's someone you've got at home who, again, isn't in your field but sort of understands. Then again, I think just having that, just a different perspective really, really helps. But I love that. Let's see what is working rather than what isn't.
Yeah, for real. And great tip, Kirsten. Just even if it's not a coach, have someone who's in that capacity. Now, I'm going to shoot from the hip here. Now, I would say
I've done mine.
You've done yours. So, okay. And what was your highlight or low light?
Want to have a guess?
Crikey, I think you're probably I don't know, you strike me as quite an optimistic person who does come with that passion.
I am relentlessly optimistic.
Yeah, maybe your low light is awareness just because you're so busy. Yeah. That's going to be my guess. I know when I get excited about something, I have to be quite hyper aware of it's not quite the reading the room, but I have to be quite mindful of clocking what else is going on around me. Yeah.
It's a bit easier when I'm in a room on my own with just the cats. They don't seem to mind so much.
Excellent, thank you. That is really helpful. Thanks, Kirsten.
No problem. What did you put?
Well, I said I'm normally quite optimistic and I'm normally quite self-aware, but I have to kind of constantly replenish my attitude. If mine flips to a negative, I then self-reinforce, and you then start seeing the sadder bit. I heard a good quote the other day, which was, when you're happy, you listen to the melody, and when you're sad, you listen to the lyrics. And I thought it's so true. It's not the stuff around you, it's your interpretation of it all. So anyway, that was me, and a nice little quote. So, great minds of the webcast. I'd like to know your tips on what you can do to boost this factor. And I've got one that I started doing about a year ago that I absolutely love. But we'll just give everyone a minute to type in. And I know, Kirsten, we've got your lovely books. That's one you do.
Oh, yeah, okay.
If you've got any tips, let's get some of these practical tips out there. And you've got 250 characters, so feel free to use them all. And I'm going to put mine in now.
Self-care. Whoever said not bubble baths and lighting candles, but yes. TED Talks, go for a walk.
Using music, brilliant.
Interesting. Music's a really interesting one. So I've worked with a lady here at LHH who listens to a very low level, almost like a beeping noise. Just so it was something that's very constant, very much in the background, because you get an email that comes into your inbox. And again, if you're in HR, we all know that one knock at the door can change everything for you. But just looking at when those emails are flying in and you just see the title, your heartbeat can spike. And actually you do need to keep things really, really low and level in order to keep things going.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, there's a whole heap of stuff out there that can help us cope with that noise. Yeah. I'm loving some of these. Listen to nonsense podcasts to turn off the brain. I agree, a really good escape. Choose your attitude. Yeah, there's a lot of research that says if you get up, and Tony Robbins talks about he on his audio types, he says start with an hour of power, and if that's too much, it's your half hour, and if that's too much, 15 minutes, whatever it is, just that time that's yours. Go for a walk. Time on your own, completed list. That's a massive one. Write a completed list and work towards it. Praise and recognition.
Cat cuddles, I love these.
So some of these are fantastic. Cat cuddles, yes.
I like to say thank you. There's a real thing about, I know people have gratitude journals. I love that. Thank you, Claire. Thank you to the person who suggested to focus on what you have rather than what you haven't.
Yep.
But I like to say thank you. So just someone who it could have been a really small thing, like they plucked up the courage to phone someone, or they managed to get something off their to-do list. But it does make a difference when your manager, especially when you're not together. And I know I focus quite a lot on not being together physically, but when your manager, when you're someone else recognizes that you've done a good job and they tell you about it, that's the other thing. How lovely is that?
Yeah, amazing.
Oh, fresh air, yes. There's a lot of things in here around walking. You see that wellness piece, Tim, that you talked about at the beginning.
Yeah, really important.
Can you please remind us of the title of the book? Yes, Jackie. I'll pop that back in the chat.
Thanks, Kirsten.
No
All right, some brilliant answers there. Obviously, what would one of these be without a PowerPoint slide with some bullets on it? So a few things are focus on your back to your own personal mission, your specific value add within the organization. What's special about you? What are the things you can bring that feel almost effortless to bring? So focus on your on your strengths, reflect on positive outcomes and positive opportunities. So actually some people find it helpful to write those things down. Confine negative thoughts to a specific kind of time of day or reframe them. So not denying them, but just saying, right, I'm going to write these things down. I'm going to have a good look at them and say, right, this one I can't control. This one I feel irrational about. This one, there is something I can do. So I'm going to plan it. And just, having some dedicated time to actually get those out. Spend less time with negative people. The original draft on this slide said avoid contact with negative people. Sadly, that is not possible. So I tweaked the wording on it. Try and reduce the amount of time you spend with those drains that Kirsten mentioned. And then mindset enhancing activities. And we listed a whole bunch of those. Those are fantastic. The other one I was going to say, so I listen to a lot of TED Talks. That's the one I put in the chat. The other one is, rather than spending less time with negative people, try to, and I hope most of you really do, spend time with people who inspire you, who lift you up, and that's often a bit easier to do than cutting out time with the negative people. But just try to book them in and make use of those people around you. Right. So we've done factor 1 of 5. Next one is action orientation. We'll move through this a bit more quickly, but this is all about, remember, Rocky is able to surround himself with good people, takes action, he changes course. We talked about Gene Kranz and how his positive mindset actually drove some different actions. And there are 3 broad categories of action taken. First one is actually just seeking help. So you might not need to do anything. It's easy to sit there spinning and going, oh my gosh, I should be doing something. I should be doing something. Actually, seeking help may be the best first action you take. Generating options. So actually, rather than just say, well, this is the way, actually slowing yourself down and coming up with some options. Or if you're really, really stuck, there's a brilliant YouTube out there about a concept called the pre-mortem, where you write down, in the face of knowing that there's no perfect course of action, you actually think through the things that almost definitely will go wrong in some way or other, and that makes it easier to pick one. And lastly, taking steps and breaking bigger actions down into steps. Now, at this point, it's not on the slides, but I want to share a technique with you all, which is called SPIN, which I use a lot. And it's very easy. There's a brilliant quote, which is, our brain is a very good information processing device. You can think through one thing at a time really nicely and easily, but it's a really poor information storing device. So if I ask you to remember a landline number that's 6 digits long, you can probably do it. If I ask you to remember someone's mobile number, your brain goes and hits the buffers. Most people can't remember a mobile number. So your brain, once you get above 7 things, is not very good at remembering them. So when you've got a lot on your mind, your brain stops being able to process, which it's very good at, and it starts trying to hold these different bits of information and it's jangling around. And SPIN is a really good technique you can use to help with all 3 of these. So the S stands for situation. So if I'm on my own and I'm feeling a bit wound up, I will just get a piece of paper and I'll go, right, this is on my mind. I'm going to catch up with Kirsten about the webinar, and I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got this proposal due in, and I just get it all out. Some of it will be rational and some of it will be totally irrational, but it's written down on the page and my brain doesn't have to store it anymore. And that then enables you to do the P, which is problems and priorities. So I then just draw a circle around the ones that feel like the bigger, more actionable ones. And then I'm able to, in turn, generate ideas about what to do about them. So I've got to do that meeting with Kirsten. Okay, the idea is, we need half an hour for it. I can shape it, I can form it. And then N is next step. And some of these things that you come up with, if there's a lot on your mind, they might be quite big and quite weighty, and they can seem quite intimidating. So just by breaking down that N, that next step, just to help you get rolling, is a really, really nice, simple tactic. So it's not on the slides, but I thought I'd share it today, and hopefully useful. Let's have a check-in, and then Kirsten will have a chat about our ideas that we can do to help boost these. Where are you against this, action orientation kind of factor? What do people feel like they're really good at? And I'm just logging back into my phone. What do people feel like they're sort of, doesn't come as naturally to them seeking out?
So we've just had something on the chat,
okay.
Tim, by lovely Ben Is It. So hello Ben, it's lovely to hear from you. So he suggests something called Question Burst, which is a good tool or process if you're facing a challenge and want to think of a new possibility. He sent a link to YouTube on that.
Amazing.
So knowing Ben, it'll be really, really helpful. And normally there's normally something like 5 questions that can really help you get to the bottom of something as well. So
brilliant. Thank you so
lots
much.
of people get on. No. Oh, hang on. You want me to do another Menti, don't you?
Yeah, please. And just while we go, just get a few more. So it seems like people are less good. I know there's no good or bad, but people are less describing themselves as always seeking help. Sometimes we feel like we want to front up and we don't want to ask silly questions. Sometimes we're just too busy and it's easy to solve problems ourselves. So I can understand that being people's kind of lowest one. And it seems like we're more comfortable breaking things down and taking those steps. So really helpful to check in as a group. And hopefully that's given you a little bit of time just to have a think through about where you're at. We've had a brilliant suggestion on the chat already, and I shared that SPIN technique. What else can we do to get ourselves better at taking action, or get ourselves more in that action taking spot? So again, it's a bit harder to come up with tips for this one, but I know there are ones out there. So it'd be great to hear a couple of people who've got them. And I'm going to type in one that I always find useful, which is I'm going to type in them. Yeah, be brave. That's a brilliant one.
I always have how would you feel if this thing didn't happen, or if it didn't quite go the way you wanted to?
Yeah.
There are no stupid questions approach. It's very true. Try to remember every question is a good question. Yeah, talk to colleagues. Getting help to talk through issues. Absolutely. Yeah, don't leave it too late to ask for help. That's the classic. You've almost described there my son and his homework. Panic. Feel the fear and do it.
I love that. It's a great book as well. Feel the fear and do it anyway. It's a really, really good one. Getting help to talk through issues. what I've got on the right-hand column here. So leverage networks, yeah, don't leave it too late, break things down. Network and make friends, yeah. Reflect on it with a peer to feel secure. All fantastic tips.
Take a step back and a breather.
Yeah. Seeing the big picture, I think that's fantastic. Kirsten, I guess I'll put you on the spot a bit.
Oh, hello.
You've always struck me as actually genuinely someone who does take action.
Yes.
When you get stuck, what do? What works for you?
What do? I push my chair back. I go make a cup of tea. I walk away from the problem, which sounds really odd, but sometimes having that time to think is, because I can always get, those of you who know me and have worked with me in the past, there might be a couple of people on this call, I generally have an answer quite quickly. But for the really big stuff, I got asked yesterday something actually by someone in the team, and I thought, oh, I need to go and think about this quite carefully in order to come back with a considered response. So I play the lunchtime test, which is if you've got to write a difficult email and never write, there's lots of classic things here, but never write an email in anger. Even if you're really stressed and really busy, save it into drafts. Don't put the person's name in the to, because we've all done that once or twice. And then I leave it and I either go and just get away from it, and then I come back and I can review it almost in the cold light of day, just to see, is this the right thing? If I misread it, what would I think? And if I were to receive this, how would it make me feel? So I think that's, but honestly, just walking away from it sometimes is momentarily, just a little space, just to think about it, is probably what I would do.
That's a brilliant one. Thanks, Kirsten. There's a brilliant YouTube. If you look up, there's one about the procrastination and beating it from an arch procrastinator. And it's all about this guy. It's fantastic. It's really funny. It talks about the procrastination monkey. It's amazing. I'll plunk it in the chat. But next time,
that would be great.
I'll track it down. But it's so good. So that's one thing. Is kind of avoiding distractions. And sometimes if something feels big, it's easy to just get your phone out. I'll just check this. But avoiding that. And the other one I was going to say was around prioritizing. So a brilliant quote, which I think is really useful, it's always stuck with me. The most important thing is to keep the most important thing the most important thing. And sometimes it's very easy to fill up your time saying, oh gosh, this is hard, and I don't know if I can take action. I'm going to do all these other little tiddly bits, and then I'll be in the right frame of mind. Some of these things, you're not going to be in the right frame of mind. So, keep it front of mind, sorry, bit of a COVID. Anyway, I will now jump off my soapbox and we'll have a little look. Thanks so much for those who shared tips, and we'll have a look at the next factor. And thanks so much everybody for sharing these. So some of these, we've already covered the guts of these, but do some research, look into what other people have done, have an ask around. Develop some planning if steps feel big, identify some options to move forward, have a little brainstorm, select the least bad of those, having things written down again, helps your brain information process rather than information stored, and then set goals. So being reverting to mission, reverting to your core purpose will help you in that prioritization. So that's action orientation. The next one, now this is my worst one, so I'm the least qualified to talk about this. I always neglect it. Ability building. So what things can we build? We can build our competence, so we can actually build our, our skill set. We can build our knowledge, so jump into the bottom one, we can actually learn or have access to more knowledge. And if we don't have the competence or the knowledge, our general problem solving skills that can help us figure it out or get the right people in the room. And all of us will have different levels of that. The key thing we need to focus on is, what am I doing to build those, and am I good at building those? And it's one I'm most guilty of, is investing in myself and not feeling guilty about doing it. And it seems to be one people feel guilty about. So just shooting from the hip, what are you better at building? So what are you least good at building, and where are you strongest? I'll just value checking in, and then we'll have a little talk about things we can do. And there's one tip in particular, a nice little acronym that I want to share with people. And we'll go from there. So let's have a look. Get through. Also, most people at the moment are coming in an average of 4.1 out of 5. Are saying they're good problem solvers. And actually, pleasingly, not everyone, but the norm is to the right of 2.5. So we're better at this than not good at it as a group. And it's just interesting checking in on what people feel like they are good at building versus not.
Someone's or Michelina has just put something really interesting in the chat, actually, okay, which is around motivation should sit in ability building. You need to and want to get better at gain knowledge and learn new techniques.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I would cite, everyone, it's quite a well-known one, but Obama reads something ridiculous. Like Barack Obama. I think I've heard different numbers of volumes of literature. One person said he reads 4 books a day, which I just don't believe is physically possible.
No.
But I think he probably does read, probably a couple of weeks. He probably does just sits up and reads and just constantly investing himself in it. And if he's able to do it with his workload, we should be able to do it and prioritize it. So and help me out, because this is, again, it's my lowest one. What can we do to boost this factor and get good at it? I do have one that is, I've pumped on the slide that comes next.
Okay, so what can we do better what can we do to be better at ability building? I think it's around learning. As I said, most in my line of work, most people have been through it before. So I would go, right, who's done this before? If you're thinking about problem solving, someone who's not connected to your field, or you could go and talk to someone else within the organization. Admittedly, if it's HR sensitive, then obviously you might not be able to, but in your trusted circle and maybe the next one out, going and asking what other people have done.
Yeah.
There's always someone who's got some experience in it.
Yeah, I love that. That is really helpful. And someone's put coach or mentor, and I think that's an amazing one, is, not knowing, they won't tell you the answer all the time, but you just will point you in the right direction. Oh, here's something I use. Research, physical time aside, that's a big one, is, actually having a development plan and something that you're aiming towards with some time, and see it as a valid activity.
And actually schedule it in your calendar. So our chief exec, I've heard, I'm not sure if JC's on the line, but she will schedule time in her diary for thinking time. And I must admit, I've started carving out an hour a day selfishly to make sure I go and eat. But otherwise the day can just fly by and you suddenly realise we're not.
Interesting though, Kirsten, that you said selfishly.
Catch
yourself doing, you say, it's selfish of me to eat. It's like, no, you're the resource.
I need to look after myself. But that's the thing. I mean, I've gone through, and I'm sure everyone who's on this session now has had days where you're on, well-being, eating. Yes, Nicola, I will eat more. Maybe cake. No, not so much cake. Fruit. But everyone in this session will have had days when you're on back-to-back calls. You haven't got that moment to come up from air. We are now digitally connected, whether we like it or not, laptops, phones, everything else. And, I say, I walk away when I need to go and think about things, but it's almost I need to walk away to go and get a cup of tea to help me decompress from one thing and then focus on whatever's coming next. And we say this about going and reading, but I've signed up for emails from Harvard Business Review, for example, and some of them most of them, to be honest, I do delete, but there's just the odd one where you think, actually that article's really interesting. I'm going to carve out 15 minutes because it doesn't take that long. I'm going to go and read the article and I'm going to think about it. And then is it something I can share with my team, for example?
Yeah.
So yes.
I think that's great, Kirsten. And it's great that you started that learning habit and blocking your time. There's a brilliant one, which is find out your preferred way of learning. And And I
Oh,
love
that's
that because, you know, there's so much stuff out there. There are loads of articles, there are loads of YouTubes. There's just so many different ways you can learn. Pick the one that works for you. And is just a really lovely tip there. We haven't got time to read all these out, but go on, Kirsten, sorry.
I was just going to say, Gabriella's just put something on the team about you, saying that TED Talks are clearly, that's your one.
Yeah, but actually, I do love them. My one was actually to go for some sort of qualification or award. You know, if you've got a structured big thing at the end that you're working towards, actually it's that overall pull in a general direction. But yeah, you know, yeah, indeed, TED Talks are another one that close to my heart. So let's move it on. And here's some you know, good little tips. So identify, you know, think about where you want to be and learn directionally. So if I don't want the role directly above me in the organization, if I've got a vision for where I want to be in 5 years' time, and it's not the role directly above me, it's slightly over, that's going to impact where I learn. So, you know, identify where you want to go, what you want to be like and learn in a direction. Focus on building based on your strengths. So a lot of the time, so I'll be very open with this, I'm terrible at maths. I'm never going to have a career that involves maths. I can pull a decent Excel together, but it's not my strength. So I'm not going to put pressure on myself to do anything more than close the gaps that I've closed. I focus on my strengths, and it's the same for anybody. And don't beat yourself up about things that you can't naturally do as well. Be an absolute animal based on your strengths, and you'll find, you know, you'll get progress much more quickly. Intentionally seek out learning, so different range. And then this was the acronym I mentioned, which actually Burak introduced me to, which is EAST. You know, make this learning and development time easy, attractive, social, and timely. So pick a format that works for you. Make it something that you like learning about, that you're able to interact with. Social, so tell somebody that, oh, I'm trying to develop this. You know, tell your manager, tell your colleagues, I'm really trying to boost my skills in this area. Make yourself accountable to them. And timely, set aside the time to do it, block it out. And you know, you can apply that acronym across all of these. So in a minute with well-being, you know, the classic analogy when you describe this is, you know, leave your trainers by the door, make sure you do it at a time that works for you. So if you really, you know, rather than going, well, I've got to go jogging, it's hard, actually. Trainers are by the door. Actually, I'm going to give myself a little reward at the end of the week for doing it. You know, so EAST is a really powerful acronym, and please do apply it to ability building. Right, we're getting there, folks, and it's been really helpful to check in. And it's been great having a resource. So having everyone here today has actually been a really powerful resource. We've had loads of ideas, which takes us to resourcefulness. Now, many different types of resource available to people around us, so relationships, support, so actually getting support from people, using support from people, and then crucially giving support. So you might find in supporting others, actually it makes you feel more confident, reinforces your own self-esteem about what you're able to do, excuse me, post-COVID cough there, and curiosity. So actually not just exploring what's around you, but actually going beyond and saying, well, actually, there are some other things that I can make use of within the organisation, outside of the organisation. So just that we check in on that one briefly. Where are we strong or less strong? Now I have a very strong, I'll put my score in here. I rely a lot on people. I love people, I love working with them. My preference will always be to ask a colleague of mine, oh, hey, you know, you seem to know a bit about this, you know, get into a conversation about things. I do try and provide support. Where I fall down is curiosity. It's easy when we're busy to go, oh, I need this for this task here and this for this task here, but actually being aware of the overall ecosystem, things that can help you. You'd be astonished what's out there on your own intranet now, or out there on LinkedIn if you just went and found it in advance. And that's really where this directional development that we talked about in the previous factor actually still applies. Actually, if you know the types of things you want to be working towards, you will naturally be more inclined to be curious about things that might help support you get there. So really trying to have a goal will help us be a bit more curious. We just shot from the hip there. Kirsten, where did you score the stronger or less strong?
I went quite high on relationships, only because again, it probably doesn't surprise you, just because I don't know, I suppose I'm just that way wired more than anything else. I've spent many years, I suppose, building up my network, talking to people, even if it's just, oh, hi, how are you? And then always being available, actually, to help. And I think helping can be quite a weak word, but actually sometimes just by putting your hand up and saying, oh, I think I know something about that. Can I share? Can I help with you?
Yeah.
Can I help with you? Can I help you? And always, someone put it on the slide before, actually, you probably know more than you think you do. And that's something that, again, does come back. So, oh yeah, virtual coffees.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think someone has put on the chat around how do we all find the time to do this stuff? So I suggested starting small, 5 to 10 minutes, and I read over my lunch. So whatever it might be, or I know we said we don't have the commute anymore, but if you go and have 10 minutes before you leave the office, or it's just carving that time into your diary. And if it makes you a better leader, a better manager, a better employee, everyone else will benefit from that. And I'd say one of the things I've learned, actually, probably over the last 2 or 3 years, is don't be afraid to be selfish with your time at work. Because if you invest in yourself, the benefit, that return does come. It might not come straight away. It might come in a year, 2 years time, for example. But it does there.
I think the other thing, Kirsten, thinking about you and your role, is now you're responsible for a team, is you are that role model.
Yeah.
And that gift you need to give people is that license to say, well, I actually took this afternoon off for a study day. So you do it.
Yeah,
I know
exactly.
Burak's on the line. Burak goes to conferences and things. And I'm thinking, well, if my director does that, then,
you don't.
Why wouldn't I?
I think it's, for me as well, the idea is that you don't have to be glued to your seat, which I think is, again, something I've learned about. So my manager will often say to me, do you want to have a walking meeting rather than a face-to-face? So then it's headphones in, phone in pocket, and you can go for a little march around, and actually not seeing each other is sometimes quite helpful.
Yeah, I think that's great. It definitely does just the time.
Walking meetings, yeah.
And then I saw somebody wrote, I started reading it, I thought, how do I feel about that? But actually, it's a good tip, is, no sacrifice, no victory. There you go, work out what you can sacrifice to make the time to invest in yourself. So often there are things we do in our day that are less value add to us than others. And you find yourself, we're going to check Instagram, I'm going to do whatever. Sorry, Burak. It does happen often. But you find yourself doing these things that are just polyfiller and they don't add anything. Actually recognizing those, carving out, going, actually during that 15 minutes I'm gonna do X, Y, or Z is really useful. Okay, really helpful tips. Thanks, everybody.
Wow, someone's just told us they're on a walk listening to this webinar. Wow, thanks, Kat, that's so cool.
Oh, brilliant. Good.
Love that. There you go.
Excellent. So here we go. There's a few different things around these. So learning how what's happening around us affects us, research information, resources, maintain and reconnect with people in your network, seek support when you need it. Everyone needs support and help, particularly during times of change. And remember the resources you have available to you outside of your job as well. So old colleagues, really useful, powerful one. I would say the one that isn't on here, but we talked about it earlier, is nobody is ever going to say no if you ask them to be a mentor. It's a great honor to be asked to be a mentor. A really good mentor can plug you into all the other things that you see listed on here. And then our last factor, which is the addition, is well-being. We know that physiology is linked to our performance at work, so we wanted to check in on this. There's three kind of subcomponents. The first one is actually exercising in a way that suits you and you enjoy. So if you're doing something, so I'll give you an example. I hate swimming. I can't stand it. I'm not very good at it. I hate the feeling on the floor of a swimming pool.
It's cold.
I just loathe it. I've got no interest in swimming. So if I said off the back of a wellness webinar, I'm going to take up swimming, that's an awful idea because I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm not going to keep going. And there's an exercise out there for everyone. So you're regularly exercising in a way that suits you. Nutrition, again, healthy bite style that you enjoy. So it might be you eat a load of quite average food, but you are very, very diligent on actually as well eating a load of fruit and veg and everything you need. You know, whatever works for you, but in that sustainable, starting to enjoy it rather than, you know, loathing whatever it is I eat on a diet or whatever. You know, pick something that works for you in a sustainable way, and then grouping a lot of things together here, but recovering. So, what is the point in eating healthily and smashing yourself with exercise if you're not getting enough sleep, if you're not actually stretching out after you've done your marathon run, whatever it is that, you know, all the things that go around physical exercise and nutrition, particularly sleep, has a massive bearing on us and our well-being. So, look, you know, honest look in the mirror here, and I'll do the same. Mine are gonna be absolute trash because I had COVID, so I used it as an excuse to rest.
Listen, don't worry. I'll talk a good game about all this stuff, but there's always that. We'll add a bit of reality factor onto this, I think. Now, my problem is that I love cake. I'm not fussy about what sort of cake it is. I even have, because I'm a very visual person. So in front of me, and you can probably see on my shelf, I've got various pictures. Beside me, I've got pictures. In front of me, I've got pictures, because when I need that moment just to sit back and think, I've got a postcard up there that says there's always time for tea. There's always time for tea in my world. And then I've got a postcard right in front of me that says cake. And it's even got the question mark at the end. So if I ever get to meet any of you out there, what I generally do is rock up to meetings with some sort of biscuit, cake. It always seems to work quite well, I found.
Yeah.
But that's me. And again, I should exercise more. I know that. I because I haven't got time. I could make the time. 20-minute walk around the block, that would be enough. And I know as well at this time of year, when the nights are drawing in, it can be difficult. But it could be a bit of yoga at home. It could just be, you know, getting up and moving from the chair. In fact, after this, once we finish this, I will be walking downstairs to go and make that infamous cup of tea, frankly.
Good. But, I'm glad to hear it, and thanks for your honesty, Kirsten. I think so. Look, you know, got some brilliant minds on the phone. I'd value some tips, and while we're talking, I'll give you mine, which was Gina and I had twins 18 months ago now, and I can tell you this wellness went out of the window. We weren't sleeping, as you can imagine.
Of course not,
but then off the back of that, we weren't exercising, and you know, we were eating a load of junk, and you know, I could just feel those. You know, it was like I was getting physically caked in mud. You know, you're just feeling slower and heavier, and we wrote for a couple of weeks. We did we called it Wellness Wins. Judge us a couple, if you will. But on there, we had a tick for every day, and the idea was you had to get as many ticks as possible. And it was, have I slept enough? Have I eaten 5 portions of fruit and veg? I know there's all the discussion about 5, it's 7, whatever it is. Have I exercised? Have I done anything for my mind/spirit? And, you know, we had those big blocks. And it was amazing the impact it had, because at sort of 10:45, because I wanted I've got 8 hours of sleep, I would turn the TV off, you know, and we would be very disciplined about kind of, you know, getting them, because we had that, you know, traceability. It just, you know, got us into the habit. So that's my one, is just, you know, just the simple impact of measuring. Let's have a look at what the great minds of our call have got. So yeah, menu planning, definitely. If you're reactively eating, you're inevitably going, oh, what's on Deliveroo? You know.
That's a killer.
Yeah. Always leave the house once a day. Avoid blue light. That's a massive one. There's a brilliant thing, by the way. Dan Pink, again, YouTube. By the way, I do more than just look at YouTubes, but he does one about knowing what kind of sleepy you are.
Yeah,
it's all around that. You know your working pattern, when your energy's highest in the day. Micro tries. That sounds great. I assume that's you know, having a little go at lots of different things and picking what works. But if you're on the chat, anybody wanted to try more, that'd be really interesting. So routine. Choose one thing a week until it becomes a habit. That's a really good one. Don't stay on your phone. Yes.
Oh, that's a killer. Stop it, people, stop it.
I got go on, Kirsten.
I was going to say there's a difference as well. So here's the work phone, and then there's this one as well. How disciplined are we? For all I know, people out there and I've had this on phones in the past. I've had my work emails on my personal phone. Never again.
Yeah.
That when you hear that ding coming in at 10 o'clock at night, and it's a worky, and some things, and I know some things are urgent and you can't do anything about it, and there's that element of you have to respond. But it's that, does it need a response now at 10 o'clock at night? I mean, it might do, because you might want to get it out of your head so you can then go to bed and sleep. We have a phrase at LHH, and it was something actually that was shared with us right at the beginning of COVID, which is put your oxygen mask on first before you help anybody else. If you're not kind to you, it's a bit like within a family. If mum goes down, the whole forget it, the whole family goes down. It's like a thing of dominoes. Exactly. But if you look after yourself, everyone around you will as well. So that's put your oxygen mask on first, and then help the person next to you. But it is tough, actually. It really, really is.
It's really tough. So brilliant tips here. And I do remind everyone of that EAST acronym, make it easy, make it accessible, make it social, and make it timely. And we've got some fantastic tips here. So thank you very much. So that's the overall model. We'll just round up in terms of things that will help us with our wellness. Pick things that work for you. Keep track of your goals. And start in a way that suits you. Don't go to the gym and put yourself into the ground and beat yourself up and then feel rotten for a week afterwards, because it won't make you want to go. Pick a way that suits you. So maybe that some people like to throw out all the junk food out of their house and go big bang. And maybe that some people like to slowly taper things down. Know yourself. Start off your path to further well-being in a way.
Sorry to interrupt you. There's a telecommunications client who I've worked with in the past, who have wellness Wednesdays, and between the hours of 12 and 2, and they practice this from the top down, at least they used to, but there are no meetings, no internal meetings, no external meetings, and you use those 2 hours for you. So you can go and do a yoga class, go to Pilates, go for a walk, but you've got 2 hours. You could go for lunch with friends, and you haven't got that pressure, I've got to get back for work. You've got 2 hours. How lovely is that? Go and do something for you that benefits you, and that goes throughout the entire organisation. They've got thousands and thousands of employees. So it's, I think as well within well-being, I love that with that. Yes, people are saying, wellness hours in the diaries every day.
Yeah.
It's if you and also within HR, if we're saying that this is good for us, it's good for our soul, it's good for our mental well-being, if it's good for this and the other, absolutely fantastic, and you've got the power to really, really influence it as well.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing just in closing I want to talk about, and then we'll talk about our team's resilience, is put some boundaries up. So not barriers, not saying I can't do that. Actually having that discussion, saying, well, actually, I'm pretty full at the moment, so here are some items that I could push out. Let's talk about our managers and agree what the priorities are. Put boundaries out, and it's so easy, especially in this hybrid world we live in, to say yes to everything. The person who's responsible for educating other people about how much you're willing to work or overwork is you. And people don't always know that you're overstretched. People don't always know that you're busy. So please do, as part of all of these factors, we talked a lot about it today, blocking out time, it seems to come on every single one. You own a stake in your own well-being, and in educating those who work with you about what's possible and not possible, and practice putting up those boundaries and saying, actually, I can't do that today. Actually, can we do that down the track? Actually, is there someone available? And you get used to saying those things. Not barrier, not saying you're not going to do it, but just get used to that. We have a whole separate session on that. I could talk about that all day. But that's not closing 2 pence on that. So we've talked about you, which hopefully has been helpful. I want to spend a little bit of time now. We've got about 18 minutes left by my watch. So we'll canter through this in about 15. We'll leave a minute or two for questions on the chat. I want to talk about our team. So there's a few ththings we'll cover through. And Kirsten, I'll ask, hopefully, I'll ask you questions every now and then. There is, similar to the self-assessment, there's an observation checklist. So if you drop us an email, we can get that out to you. And that is, you'll have a gut feel about, I might work with Kirsten, I've just got this gut feel of things are really tough for Kirsten. That tool, this observation checklist, just against the factors of the resilience model, just helps you sense check your gut about what might be going on for that person before entering into a conversation with them. So the thing to not do if you get that attachment is don't go, hi Kirsten, I've done my resilience assessment checklist and I've seen you might be struggling with resourcefulness. It's just there to sense check that gut feel so you can go forward with more confidence into conversation. So it's just a useful second tool. And we know it's hard to raise well-being with colleagues. And I've had colleagues who've struggled. It's not always someone who bursts into tears, you know, at the end of the phone. You know, it's subtle things. So GROW is a useful technique that I just wanted to share with you all. So if you're somebody who manages a team, you know, we're coming into this run, this you know, the sunlight deprivation time. It is tough. Yes. Have a talk with your team about resilience. Make it clear you want everybody to do well, and make that goal for everybody. And you may want to even include in some of these objectives, what's your well-being or personal growth objective. But down the track, if you've done that, you'll then be in a position to use a conversational framework like GOLD. So rather than going, Kirsten, I'm a bit worried about you, I might go, hi Kirsten, you know, if you remember, and we talked about the team going, you know, focusing on the well-being, you know, I just thought I'd check in with you, how's that's going? So I've referenced the goal. Yeah. I've then given Kirsten a chance to give her view of the reality. And if Kirsten says, I'm fine, I love that thing that your manager says about how you really do. So do
yeah, it's a nice technique.
And then if that still doesn't work, you still for you just say, okay, just a few things that I've observed, feel free to challenge me, feel free to push back. You know, I observed this, I observed that, what do you think? So just agree that common view of the reality, just give that person a chance to open up. And if and when they do, if there are things that they're struggling with, rather than just telling them the solution, work through and brainstorm some options with them. And then at the end, you never end up with a conversation where you've raised well-being with someone and you know, they don't say they're going to do something, or you don't say they're going to do something. There's always an action, but just at the end say, okay, great, we've had that conversation. Will you let me know next week, you know, let's check in and see if you've cleared out a few more meetings, or whatever the action is, you know, have that accountability point at the end. GROW is a really nice, simple framework, because it's hard to raise this subject of well-being. It's a really nice conversation framework, and you may want to use just you know, raising well-being with a team member. I
think as well, as a manager, and also when I've been an individual contributor, it's incumbent on the manager to create a really psychologically safe working environment. So I've had jobs where I've asked for help and been told, no, you're absolutely fine, just basically get on with it. Admittedly, that was a long time ago. That led to sobbing on the fire escape at that particular job and going off sick, and not quite right for a little while actually. And then in later years, recognizing that October in particular can be a bit of a funny month for me. I don't know why. I haven't figured this one out quite yet, but realizing and saying to my manager, I need some time off. Can I take some time? And I'm going to do it now before it becomes something bigger. And then just understand, where am I at? And I don't know if I've been fortunate or I've had very open and honest relationships with managers, actually, especially over the last few years, where you can say to them, this is how I'm feeling, this is what I need, this is what I need from you as well, and I am going to do this. None of this I'm going to go and ask for permission. And for me, that's probably been one of the biggest areas of my personal and professional growth, is to say, this is where I'm heading. But also, I think because of having the family, and it's almost that if I had a friend saying that to me, what advice would I give them? Right. So why am I not taking my own medicine on that one? But it can be a very difficult conversation to have. Very difficult conversation to have. Yeah,
really tricky. So so hopefully a useful template. One of the people in the Mentee mentioned about root cause. It might be that, for example, I've seen, sorry, I'm picking on you because you're on the screen. All right. But I might see that Kirsten's really struggling. And I think through about why is it every time we meet with X, Y, or Z type of client, Kirsten's struggling? And I can work through and maybe work back and say, well, what would help? And just ask and work back towards the root cause, which might be, well, actually, I'd really value some training. Actually, I'd really value just, you being in the meeting as well, because I find that person stressful, but just, asking like those kind of, who, what, when, where, why questions to work back towards a more meaningful way of helping them is really useful. So grow, useful little template. Thanks, Kirsten, for sharing the insight. The last thing I want to talk about is keeping our teams performing well. So we talked about our own resilience. We talked about watching out for those within our teams, grow as a framework to be useful. The last thing we'll cover is based on a Harvard Business Review article, and you can see this phenomenon here, which is you've got a team and they're all doing okay, and a challenge comes along, things change, and you can see they initially all rise to the challenge, but after several days of this, maybe you've got a massive event happening in your company, after a couple of weeks of it, you start to see one of the employees, employee number 3, really starts, their performance just starts to drop off, and eventually, you might start, if you work particularly in the logistics company, what have you, and there's movement, you might start to be worried about their safety or their long-term health. It really starts to drop off, and they go off sick. And then that leaves team members 1, 2, 4, and 5 going, and eventually the next team member number 1, starts to do the same, and the last remaining team members are carrying more and more and more of that load, and eventually get this down step where a whole team can be pulled down. A good friend of mine trained in the military at Sandhurst, and they used to do these exercises where they would get people to stay up and dig a trench 6 foot deep and 3 meters long overnight, and then at 6 in the morning they'd come out, and these guys were expected to go in and they'd be told, actually, now you've got to fill that in by 10 in the morning. And they would just do annoying things like that to deprive people of sleep, just to see. It was the only way they could simulate the stress of battle, was to just deprive them. And he very much described this phenomenon where a few people start to go down, the communication goes down, and eventually there's just this huge heavy weight pulling on the rest of the team. It pulls the whole team down. We don't want that to happen. So we just thought we'd focus a little bit about on your teams and how they get on. So it'd be interesting to check in on what your teams are like and how sort of prone you think your teams are to this. And again, bear in mind this is all totally confidential, what have you. How do your team fall apart quickly, or a team pretty robust? Let's have a little look. And they'll probably have a similar range, I expect. Don't feel obliged if you don't feel comfortable. If your boss is sat next to you in a room, if your boss is sat next to you, I advise put an honest answer and have a conversation about it. That's us.
Really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so we've got a big range there. Go on, Kirsten. Sorry, I cut across.
I was just going to say, the team. If you've got a great team, and I mean, I've worked in some great teams. I've worked in some not so great teams over the years. And it's the ones where everyone says, when there's a problem, or a challenge, everyone says, right, what can I do? How can I help you? They're the ones that I want to keep close to, because that's what you want, isn't it? The team rally together. And also, I suppose the other thing you could apply to this as well is if you're in change programs, if you're in, something that's just long and stretched out over time, as the pandemic in many ways is almost a great example of this. But it's when things get really, really taut and nerves are frayed, and you get into that stage. It's how do you keep going?
Yeah.
And rely on each other because with family, if you're going through a family event, it's very easy to shout at each other and you can fall out. Professionally, hopefully you've all got that filter where it stops you from saying something, hopefully, so you can't come back from it.
Completely. And I think that's where, in this hybrid environment, if I annoyed you in a meeting, Kirsten, or whatever, in an office, I might grab you afterwards and say, oh, Kirsten, I'm sorry, all I meant was X, and we'd sort it out immediately. And you're getting this phenomenon where all these micro stresses build up within teams, and there's no release. So let's try and think about how we can help combat that, and what support have people got on this, and what makes some teams more resilient than others. And we've got, of course, there'll be a slide afterwards with the answer, but some of these are fantastic. transparency, good communication,
I
recognition.
love these.
So recognition's a really good one, actually. You know, buoying up your teammates, making people feel good about themselves. Honesty, I think that's really a really good one. Leadership, yeah, you know.
Someone said on
reflection. Go on, Kirsten.
Someone said on the chat earlier around they start their Monday morning meeting with what went well for them the previous week.
Yeah.
So I said I do something similar. I have Feel Good Fridays, which is everyone, you should be able to find one positive thing about your week. Frankly, I think you should be able to find one positive thing about your day, but we'll aim for the week. And that's what I ask people, right? Share with me what's the one thing you've done that week. And again, it's that shared experience that, you know, it bonds, because my team are geographically diverse as well. So I want to keep them together, and I don't walk in their shoes. So I want to hear what they're up to.
Yeah, completely, Kirsten. Thank you for answering that. Somebody's appreciating and understanding strengths and weaknesses. We did an exercise within my team about a month ago called Positive Gossip.
Oh yeah, that's brilliant.
And it's you know, and you can look it up, folks, and I really do recommend it. It's so you know, it's such a nice thing to do, to just, you know, recognize each other's strengths, what you go to for that person about, and you know, the positive things people say about that person they might not be aware of, you know, and it just lifts a team. So thank you for these brilliant answers. Well, let's have a look at the textbook answer, and we can pick that apart a little bit. So here are the 5 things Harvard Business Review actually wrote 4, and we added number 5. So I'll start at number 5, which is this common sense of purpose. So a strong enough why enables us to endure, I should say endure, it says ensure, but endure almost anyhow. So if you've got that real true sense of mission purpose, if you think about a group of nurses, you know, are they well paid? Not particularly. Do they have to work all hours and have no sleep? Yeah, absolutely. You know, what's the one thing that keeps them all going? It's that common sense of purpose, that passion for helping people. And if you dial that up in teams, you'll find they're more able to prioritize, work across one another, and most importantly, keep going. So we'll start at number 5, and then the others are, they know they can complete tasks together. They have that confidence in one another. And we talked about that previously. They trust one another and feel safe. So one of the entries in the previous screen was around psychological safety. Actually, I can put forward this idea. I do feel comfortable that if I make a mistake, Kirsten won't call me out in front of everybody. And there's a common mental model of teamwork. So for some teams, it might be, right, we're all going to get into our Monday huddle, and then we're all going to agree the priorities for the day. For other teams, it might be, well, Kirsten's the one who's amazing with spreadsheets. So we'll let Kirsten do this initial model, and we'll all work off the back of that. You know, but there's a common model, and teams that are less resilient, everybody pulls in different directions. One person wants to do a brainstorm, and another person wants to go and do some analysis. And the more common we can get our model, even if we might all work in different ways, as long as we have that mutual understanding, that will help our team be more resilient. And the last one is the ability to improvise. So what to do when we don't know what to do. And actually teams who are excellent at improvising are more resilient. So that's kind of, a summary of those. And it would just be interesting if we can just have a think about your own team. This virtually takes us home. So time-wise, so do your team, and it's one to take away and think about your team. Do your team really know each other's strengths? Do they have that confidence in each other? If things go wrong, are your team very good at pivoting and improvising? Do they have that common mental model of teamwork and what good looks like on a team? Is there trust and psychological safety? And then lastly, do we all have that one common mission and common sense of purpose? And you might find if you check in on those, my hope is that just you'll spot that one that's maybe a 3 out of 5. And have a think about what actions you could take afterwards to turn that 3 out of 5 into a 5 out of 5. What can I do, especially if we come up to this busy last part of the year, and then rain January, Feb on there. So Kirsten, obviously I don't want you to feel obliged to share about your team in particular, but which one of these do you think is your strongest one from your team?
I think they trust one another and feel safe, interestingly. Yeah. And we are a reasonably new team in that we reformed back in April. So I have people who I've worked with for 5 years. I've got people who have only been with the company I had in May 2 people who'd only been with us for 6 months, someone new from a different part of the group came in June, a proper outsider in July, and then someone else who I'd sort of worked with for years but I've never really spoken to. So we're still in that slightly forming way. And I think my way of managing, my way of leading is about just giving them all that trust from the get-go, and you know, keeping them close, kind of under my wings, and just say hoping, but upskilling them in a way so they can all go to each other. And I've really encouraged that youth or newness to organisation, coupled with experience, and they know the inner machinations of how we function, which seems to have worked.
Yeah, so thanks, Kirsten. That's really helpful insight. I think you're right, you know, creating that environment. And it starts with you and your, you know, openness and accessibility. So it'd be worth this all just having a think about, you know, how we can boost that within our teams. And then, you know, I'm conscious that we've not much time left, but we'll just close out with, you know, what we could do to boost team resilience. And then we'll reflect on our last action. So in the last 2 minutes, what could we do to boost our team resilience? What little exercise could we do? You know, talk, you know, honest conversation about gaps. Cake, I love that.
Whoever said cake, I'm coming to see you. We can do that.
Team meetings together, new ways of working. Yeah, that's a good one.
And actually, I'd add to that. You know, I know we joke about the cake, or team charty. I love those. Actually, spending some time together, if you can, hopefully you like the people you work with, but actually just socializing with each other. So whether or not it's, you know, the annual Christmas lunch, or some, you know, a summer do, you know, when we can be getting back together and doing that sort of things. But if you've got anybody who's new into the team, actually having them, you know, just get involved, actually, I think more than anything else.
Yeah, I agree.
I love these are all
great
fantastic.
examples.
Face to face,
yeah. Keep everyone updated so we know where we're up to, you know, clear expectations, honesty about workload.
There's a Tim, you might know about this, but there's a management principle around leaders eat last. Someone's put in there about letting the team drive the decisions, because again, if you've got loads of people saying to you, you know, team of 7 saying we want this, and you say no, I want something else, that's very difficult then. So I like that. I really like
it's a really, really good one. And of course, you know, classic things like you know, reverse mentoring, letting the team have a steer in how the team runs.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. All right, well, I'm conscious of time, so, you know, a few tips: agree on goals and processes, new solution, you know, generate ideas all together. Don't allow disrespectful comments to call things out if people aren't treating each other well. Reach out to anyone who you feel is on the fringes. Agree general approach to crisis responses. So that's times of stress, and then in general, you know, keep resilience on the agenda. Share relevant information about both resilience and day-to-day work with colleagues. Encourage each other, reframe challenges as opportunities, and be that person who pumps in that positivity. Get to connect on a personal level, and be open to feedback on ourselves as well. You know, all that helps just instill that. So we're at our time. So I just want to thank everybody, and Kirsten, you in particular, you've been so open and helpful, and Alessandra, thanks for keeping us going.
Pleasure.
I don't feel obliged, if you're on the line, don't feel obliged to respond, but do feel obliged to write down and take an action away with you. What is that one thing that you're going to do as a result of this session? You know, I really value, you know, I'm going to type in mine. Which is following.
I can't, honestly, I'm not very good typing with a thumb.
Likewise.
So I've said, and it'll come up on here in a minute, oh, wonderful, thank you for the person who said to share this with their team. Mine was around, oh, here we go, mine's popped up now. So make time for my personal and professional development. I love this. Read for 10 minutes during my work hours. Excellent.
Yeah, I like be ruthless. Be ruthless and protect
be ruthless.
Time. You know,
if anyone wants, there's another interesting book around it's called Eat the Frog. The idea being that you do the tough, when you're looking at your to-do list, you do the most difficult thing first, because you get that out of the way, everything else easy peasy. So and if you do that during the first half an hour of your day, suddenly the rest of the day hopefully will be a bit easier than you thought.
Cool. Thanks everybody. That's been just so helpful, and you know, it's been a real pleasure talking through you, Kirsten.
It's ever, Tim.
What we'll do is, please do remember, if you'd like some of the surveys, questionnaires, please drop us a note and we'll make sure those get out to you. And please do come along to the rest of the sessions, because you really want everybody to feel cared for and helpful. Here's what we'll talk through today. And thank you very much, everybody. I'll turn those slides off, and we'll just say thank you very much. All right.
All right then, thank you everyone.